Having plenty of time on my hands, I've decided to start reading to you some of the documents that I produced. I'm going to start with my blogs and then proceed to other documents, the last of which will be the novels in which I am currently investing my time in my mind and hopefully one day we'll be able to produce. The desire for my novels is to entertain while simultaneously giving a rudimentary basic education, basically a high school education in all subject matters. And so here we go. I'm going to begin with my blogs, and this is the first of them. You can find all of these and everything I've ever written, except for my freshman writing project. That's high school freshman writing project, online at my website, which is free. I will always have to pay some amount of money to have my website up there and running. It doesn't even have the opportunity to make donations or anything. So it is my voice, it is my bully pulpit. And so this has become another further extension of my bully pulpit. If you want to find and read, for those who like to read, you can find my website at www.by, not B-U-Y, BYDORIANMINDER.com. So we begin with from where I derive my perspective, and I'm going to be looking up because I'm reading my screen. From where I derive my perspective. Growing up in a small suburban mill town in the Portland metropolitan area gave me a very positive outlook on life. My neighborhood consisted of a healthy mix of elderly couples, families in their teens and 20s, and some young couples just having started a family. There, I received an early education in capitalism as I worked for the Columbia newspaper, both delivering the paper and selling subscriptions. This education was furthered by my occasional employment of my younger brother. It was also where I received my education in philosophy. Just as any education in philosophy should, mine began with theology, and later I was introduced to logic. My family attended a Mormon church, where I grew from a sunbeam to a deacon. Shortly after I was ordained as a deacon, my father decided to leave the church. Since I was more devout to the teachings of the church than the church itself, I left with him. This led to the entire family no longer attending. My theological education has never stopped. Throughout my life, I have conversed with people about faith, what they believe and why they believed it. Recently, I'm dyslexic, so it's really tough to read. Recently, I have been periodically attending a few Lutheran churches so as to supplement my personal relationship with God by adding a communal relationship. As far as my education in religious texts is concerned, most of my knowledge comes from being read to by my parents or classes I received at the Mormon church. I did, however, pick up a Bible one time at a chiropractor's office and started to read from the very beginning. I stopped as soon as I didn't understand what it was saying. This was at the word dominion. This was around the year 2000. It took me years to come to terms with an interpretation of that word. Then around 2010, I asked a trusted advisor who suggested I be careful with that word as it comes up not only in reference to man having dominion over animals, but also over women. I was then solidified in my assertion that it meant something to the effect of the responsibility for the care of. Having told this professor what I had done, he recommended I start not with Genesis, but with Ruth. Then in 2012, I picked up my King James Bible and began with Leviticus, having forgotten the suggestion. I started with Leviticus because it was, to my understanding, the book from which most moral law was derived, and I had a strong desire to follow the moral compass my Bible could provide. I began with Leviticus 18 since I was a little familiar with it already, and continued an in-depth study of the text through Leviticus 19. There, Again, I stopped. I had just found some very valuable information. Leviticus 19 begins as follows. Israel commanded, "Be holy, live righteously, love thy neighbor, and keep the commandments." The Lord reveals and reaffirms sundry laws and commandments, enchantments, wizardry, prostitution, and all evil practices forbidden. While wizardry and prostitution receive a lot of attention, I was exposed to some commandments which are never discussed and pertain to the way in which business is to be conducted. Since I was already writing the Manifesto of a Heretic, I decided to reformulate a large section of this piece so as to include 2 of these pieces of scripture. You can find this document, if you like, on my website, which will be identified in the postscript of each posting. Today, not this day, but today being October 28th, 2016, I finally began with the book of Ruth. I have found it to be the soft meat for which I was hoping is what it should say. I was hoping for, and will continue to read the Bible for personal enrichment and to inform me through the coming year. My political development has also been interesting. One could say my mother is more liberal than my father, or my father is more conservative than my mother. Both actually say the same thing, but somehow stating it one way or the other will stimulate different reactions from people. It is an interesting phenomenon. Neither, however, has been fanatically so. As such, I have grown to respect all points of view. Personally, I tend to be more fiscally conservative and socially liberal. During my K-12 education, I stayed away from government, but after a few quarters at Clark College, I would dive head first into it. I served as Finance Committee member, Constitution and Bylaws Committee member, and later as President of the Associated Students of Clark College. It was during this time where I mainly developed my knowledge of parliamentary procedure and the purpose of law and how to interpret law. In addition to my study of philosophy, law, and economics coming from life lessons, I have studied the arts of music, theater, and dance, in addition to attaining an associate's degree in math education. I have made a commitment to lifelong learning, to lifelong education, so as to remain open to new ideas. Throughout this experiment I will be conducting for 1 year, I will be posting a new topic on the 1st and 15th of each month, beginning and ending on November 1st. I hope you take the time to truly consider the ideas I present, and concerning the comments made, please use well-reasoned arguments instead of visceral reactions. Up next, the unjust man and the common man.